This Yuletide Miniseries is a replay of episodes originally published in 2024. This way, the episodes are conveniently queued up in your podcast player so you don't have to go searching for them, and you never lose your spot in the listening order. As always, we're celebrating Yuletide in real time in the Numinous Network. I hope you'll join us for daily altar time from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Pacific, starting December 21st, winter solstice, and going through till New Year on January 1st. We're gathering on Zoom to check in, light our candles, and do a 20-minute guided trance journey to connect with the Yuletide theme of the day. So join us in the Numinous Network for Yuletide. Sign up at carmenspaniola.com. Welcome to the fifth day of Yuletide, when we turn towards the light to heal and receive blessings. In 274 AD, the cult of Sol Invictus, which means the unconquered sun, was declared an official religion, and this kicks off nearly 2 millennia of confusion and debate over why December 25th is considered Jesus Christ's birthday, when so many scholars claim it couldn't possibly have been so. Nevertheless, within Christianity, this day marks the birth of the Son of God, who's often described as bearing or being a great light unto the world. But many earth-honoring traditions mark a day to celebrate the lengthening days and the light returning to the world, bringing with it hope and healing. For a few days over winter solstice, the sun seems to stand still in the sky. In this liminal period of suspension, we logically understand that the darkening days of the year have stopped, but our hearts and bodies remain slightly in a state of breathless tension, waiting for it to finally feel lighter and be reassured that all will be well. Depending on the latitude of where you live, it can take about a month before there is any noticeable difference in the lengthening of days. So it makes sense that our ancestors might feel impatient and want to begin calling the sun back through symbolic offerings and encouragement. Lighting candles and having ritual fires are a form of sympathetic magic, where we imitate an action hoping to have influence. So making your home light and bright, creating an atmosphere of warmth and healing, and taking care of your physical body. Bringing a depth of care and attunement to your health and well-being. All of these are good forms of sympathetic magic today. This is a day to notice the harmonious nature of the cosmos. A himily is a folk art form that comes from Finland that you might do today as a ritual or a craft. Himilies are beautiful geometric shapes made from straw and string that symbolically connect the abundance of the light half of the year with the survival of the dark half. Regional forms and names for himilies appear across Europe, including Belarus, Sweden, Lithuania, Finland, Poland, Norway, Denmark, Russia, and beyond. In fact, it's believed that this type of geometric straw art form originates in North Africa, which totally makes sense since Egypt was long considered the breadbasket of the ancient world. One of the most beautiful descriptions of himilies I ever read was that they are a depiction of the harmonious nature of the cosmos. They are a talisman that anchor good fortune, health, and wealth in your home. Modern himilies can be made of thin brass tubing or paper straws, and you often see them these days on Instagram with air plants hanging in them. But originally, they were made of rye or wheat straw, a byproduct of spring and summer food production. Historically, Finnish folk would hang himilies over their dining table tonight to celebrate and affirm life and honor the abundance that helped them make it through the long winter. Make sure you go to the online course material so you can get links to see beautiful images and how-tos if you want to make your own himily. The blessing of food is commonly celebrated across cultures today. Feasting was of great importance, since by now in midwinter it was difficult to keep feeding livestock. There would be a slaughter, so folks would have meat to fill their tummies and larder. From the 15th century comes a famous story set at Christmas time in Camelot, called Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It details 3- and 4-day Christmas feasts. The menu for the first night, considered a fast, includes fish and vegetables. Thereafter, a typical meal might consist of 1 boar, 2 complete carcasses and 3/4 of beef, 2 calves, 4 does, 4 pigs, about 60 fowls, hen and possibly capons, 8 partridges and 2 geese, as well as bread and cheese, along with 4 gallons of white wine and 40 gallons of red, although the amount of ale consumed is not known. Wow. So while roast goose was very popular in even the most modest households throughout the British Isles before the importation of turkeys in the mid-1500s, in the Old Norse traditions, a roast boar's head was common probably because of its association with the god Freyr and a successful wild hunt. In Charles Dickens' England of the early 1840s, the New Poor Law was introduced to reduce the cost of poverty relief and maintenance cost of workhouses. So a workhouse is like basically forced labor by poor people in exchange for shelter and food. So basically like prison. Pauper is the term used for poor people who received income assistance from the state, a church, or a union. So basically a kind of welfare. The New Poor Law prohibited serving roast beef and plum pudding to paupers around Christmas time, a sign of shifting political attitudes towards poverty. It's also a notable example of the disciplinary role of food in institutional contexts. Noted. In England, wild game and fowl were a Yuletide staple during the Renaissance, and as mentioned already, turkey was the mainstay of Christmas dinner from the 15th century. But by Victorian times, roast beef had supplanted all else as the most highly esteemed and quintessential Christmas dinner of the British people. And Victorians had so embraced Christmas as a time of universal goodwill and noble ideals and rituals of hospitality and gift exchange that denying paupers roast beef dinner was seen by many as a stain on the national character. In this period of reform and revolution spanning over a century, there were multiple bread and food riots. Radicals began to protest the New Poor Law and touted roast beef as the very basis of English liberties along with the right to vote, because no, of course, the poor and working class couldn't vote yet. Revolutionaries seeking to extend full citizenship to the poor and working class frequently invoked notions of merry old England, where all men were equal under the Magna Carta, and the average man enjoyed roast beef, beer, and plum pudding every night. And thus, roast beef dinner tonight can be seen as a symbol for the basic liberties, respect, and communal care we all deserve. Of course, this harkens back to a time before industrial agriculture and feedlots, so I hope that if you're investing in a roast, you'll make sure it comes from a farm where the animals are also treated with the right to free range, respect, and deep care that they deserve too. What must be the most grand Christmas dinner ever made is a meat pie created in Scotland. It's on record as being delivered all the way to Sir Henry Grey in London in 1770. The contents of the pie are listed as 2 bushels of flour, which is over 80 pounds of flour, by the way, 20 pounds of butter, it's a cook after my own heart, 4 geese, 2 turkeys, 2 rabbits, 2 neat's tongues, so that's what they used to call beef tongue, 4 wild ducks, 2 woodcocks, 6 snipes, 2 curlews. Woodcocks and snipes and curlews are like shorebirds, kind of like sandpipers. 4 partridges, 7 blackbirds, and 6 pigeons. It was made by a woman that I must say must have possessed ample confidence, ambition, and industry, none other than Ms. Dorothy Patterson, housekeeper at an estate in Hawick, Scotland. It was 9 feet in circumference. It weighed 170 pounds, and it was presented at the feast table by 2 men pushing a specially made trolley as they served the guests. I do wonder how food safe it was. Anyway, well done, Ms. Patterson. Deep bow to you, and a toast of whiskey in your honor from all the would-be chefs toiling in kitchens today. The rest of us can just do what they did in the humbler houses of Scotland and the Shetland Islands today to honor the day of light and blessings upon the world, and we can make a round bannock or other special bread or any kind of cake with a hole pressed in the center and notches cut into the edges to represent rays of the sun. An orange-scented cake is especially appropriate, since oranges are a symbol of the sun, with its life-giving vitality and abundance. Speaking of citrus and the sun, citrus fruit, such as blood oranges from Italy, were a prized Yuletide treat throughout Old Europe, and they were often brought home and given as gifts. Orange pomanders used to be the domain of only the very wealthy, as they were made with ambergris, a waxy substance produced in the digestive tracts of sperm whales. It gives off a fecal odor. Ask your parents what that means, kids. When fresh, but a woodsy, pleasant smell when dried. It was believed to have life-enhancing properties and was worn in a locket around the neck or waist as a fancy jewelry, similar to like cufflinks or maybe a pocket watch today. The nugget of ambergris was known as the pomme d'ambre, later morphing into pomander. By Tudor times, instead of ambergris, the fancy locket was filled with wax and spice blends like a solid perfume. The Archbishop of York began carrying a spice-studded orange pomander at public events in the early 16th century, and so began the tradition of the poor man's pomander, which could now be made from an orange rather than a fancy piece of jewelry or the intestines of a whale. In ye olden days in Britain and Scandinavia, folks would make sun wheels of woven ivy and hang dehydrated orange slices onto them, kind of similar to our modern Christmas wreaths. Since ivy is an evergreen, it's one of the few plants available during the winter months in Northern Europe. Ivy symbolizes eternity and everlasting life, and has been associated with women and cycles of rebirth since ancient times. The sun wheels would be placed on the fire as an offering of thanks for blessings bestowed, and to encourage the continued circling of the sun through the wheel of the year. In so many cultures, there is a myth of the wondrous child that involves death, a journey through the underworld, and rebirth. Mithras of ancient Rome and the sun gods Sol and Victus belong to this type of myth cycle, as well as Attis from ancient Greece and Osiris in Egypt. In various Celtic traditions, during an underworld or otherworld journey, as the Celts would describe it, the child grows up and becomes some version of the Winter King, or the king who transcends death, also known as the Holly King. Holly sprigs with berries could now be brought into the house to ward off evil spirits, and anything that symbolizes light takes pride of place on the mantle or altar. On this night in Scottish homes, the youngest child in the house would take a flame from the Yule log and light the candles on the tree while everyone made a wish for the year ahead. Since this day is a replay of the activities of the month of May, today we acknowledge some of the same pagan themes as the spring festival of Beltane. Things like the blessings of vigor and vitality and flourishing and growth. Just as we find during May Day celebrations, Yuletide has long been associated with games and friendly competition. From ancient Rome, we have the December festival of Saturnalia, with its dice games and gambling, as well as numerous chariot races. In Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, we're told of the childlike Yuletide jousting and carousing of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. Old Norse Yule games include chess-like tabletop games of skill, such as Taffel, as well as competitions of strength like wrestling and drinking games. Victorians in England embraced more genteel parlor games like Throw the Smile. It's common custom throughout Europe, especially the alpine regions of Switzerland, France, Germany, and Austria, to burn tree resins as a form of incense during this time of year, cleansing and purifying the home to expel old or demonic energies and to prepare the body, heart, and mind for a fresh start is a ritual that continues to this day. We can link this in some ways to the three wise men bringing frankincense and myrrh to the baby Jesus, in the sense that people of all races and times have sensed that certain astringent smokes and burnt offerings have a clarifying effect. For a ritual observance today, on your altar you could display a pomander, clove-studded orange, to represent the blessings of solar energies. Singing carols that mention light is also very appropriate. Making himilies and sun wheels could be fun. In an east or south-facing window, I'll be hanging a simple wreath made of rosemary for remembrance, with dried orange slices to herald the sun and beckon it back into our home. And a family board game night or some old-fashioned charades on Zoom even could hit just the right note tonight. Clear the air in your home with some woodsy aromatherapy, or burn some incense to settle your heart and mind. Or just take a bath and rest and heal. Do whatever feels like healing for you. I hope you'll take a few moments to listen to the meditation on self-healing.